The Anaheim Ducks have continued to be very busy on the NHL trade market. Last night they completed 3 separate trades with 3 different teams. We'll get into all those details coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top, the Anaheim Ducks have been an incredibly busy team here over the past 24 to 48 hours in the NHL trade market. As we know, the Ducks have been in a massive losing streak, and we saw General Manager Bob Murray come out recently and give his head coach Randy Carlyle a vote of confidence, basically indicating he's not in the market, at least right now, to make a coaching change. Now, depending on how long this losing streak continues, he may not have a choice later on, or he may choose to deal with that in the offseason, depending on where things go. Now, of course, in the past couple days here, we've saw the Anaheim Ducks make a trade with the Dallas Stars, shipping a long-time forward Andrew Cogliano, the former NHL Ironman, over to the Dallas Stars in return for Devin Shore. And then yesterday, we saw the first trade of the day happen fairly later in the day between the Anaheim Ducks and the Minnesota Wild, where they've traded forward Pontus Aberg over to the Minnesota Wild in return for Justin Kloos. This deal actually does surprise me. I know Pontus Aberg is not a big name, but he has actually played relatively well for the Ducks. He had 11 goals in 37 games, and he's really, which is tied for second place on a team in goals for a team that's been struggling to score and get any kind of wins together in really quite some time now. Really, he's tied with Ondrej Kase for goals and only second to Jakob Silfverberg, who has 12 on the season. So for them to kind of remove their second leading goal scorer for somebody who's only played one NHL game, I do find that rather surprising. Certainly has nothing to do with the cap situation. I mean, he's only making $650,000. The contract on the other side coming in at the NHL level is $650,000 as well. So it's really, I don't quite understand this deal. Now, of course, when things don't go well, you do expect change. We know it's not coming from the coaching staff right now, at least. So I'm not surprised Bob Murray's being very active, but this deal really legitimately does confuse me on why they'd move Aberg, who's been one of their guys who they can actually rely on to get some goals once in a while. Of course, Pontus Aberg's still pretty young. He's only 25. Last year at the deadline, he was traded from the Predators over to the Oilers. Didn't last too long with the Oilers, played some games, and then was picked up by the Ducks earlier this year on waivers, and now he's gone off to the Minnesota Wild. So, again, I'm very confused. Justin Kloos was an undrafted college free agent signing out of the University of Minnesota that the Wild signed a couple of seasons back. He's been primarily a minor leaguer in the American Hockey League. He's only played one NHL game. Based on the Wild's current team and their prospect depth chart, I really didn't see him getting into any action like longer term, really fitting into their plans. So I'm not surprised they'd move him. But really, I'm really surprised by this deal by the Ducks. Like I said, for a team that's kind of starving for goals and offense and trying to get some wins together, really to get, and especially with Silfverberg going down and is on IR now, it was really, he would be tied for the team lead in goals with Ondrej Kase, who has missed a lot of time this year due to injuries as well. So, anyways, very confusing. That's the deal with the Ducks and the Wild. Later on in the evening, we had 2 more deals happen here between the Ducks. All of these deals are 1-for-1 trades. The next one happened between the Anaheim Ducks and the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Ducks have reacquired center iceman Derek Grant in exchange for forward Joseph Blandisi going over to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, of course, Derek Grant played with the Ducks last year. I thought he had a pretty solid year, really. I was quite surprised when his services were not retained during the 2018 offseason. He ended up signing with the Penguins as a free agent on a 1-year deal, league minimum type of veteran contract. I mean, Derek Grant's been around the NHL for quite some time, but he's bounced around a fair bit. Played with the Ottawa Senators early on, and then got into a couple seasons there, and really ever since then he's bounced around, I think, 3 or 4 teams now. So the Ducks are familiar with this player. He played a really good, solid role for them, I thought, in a bottom 6 capacity last season. So like I said, I was surprised that he hadn't been retained. Went over to Pittsburgh this year. Hadn't had the most productive season in the Penguins uniform. And of course, Joseph Blandisi, who was acquired by the Ducks in the Adam Henrique trade that they made with the New Jersey Devils, where they swapped Vatanen for Henrique. Blandisi was that secondary piece going over to the Ducks, but he hasn't really played a whole lot with Anaheim. He's mostly played at their American Hockey League affiliate in San Diego, and he's had a pretty spectacular year down there, putting up a point per game. So he's really good at that level, but he's not overly established at the NHL level. He did get into a fair bit of games with New Jersey before that trade, but since he's been with the Anaheim Ducks, he's been mostly a minor leaguer here, so I'm not quite sure how the Penguins are going to use him, but he can play center like Derek Grant, so they very well might use him as a depth piece for fourth line, but I think more than likely he'll probably move over to their American Hockey League affiliate, at least for the time being, and kind of see where things goes. But obviously, I do believe Derek Grant will get an opportunity to play again with the Anaheim Ducks. So I guess that deal kind of makes sense. They're bringing back a player they're familiar with, kind of add to their depth here to kind of see what they can do. And then the final trade of the night happened between the Anaheim Ducks and the Vancouver Canucks, swapping two very little used defensemen. The Ducks have acquired Michael Del Zotto from the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for Luke Schenn. And of course, Luke Schenn came into the NHL many years ago as a very high draft pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Turns out that he was really never developed into as good of a defenseman as he was projected to be during his draft year. It's kind of bounced around a fair bit here in recent years. Signed with Anaheim as a free agent this offseason and hasn't really played a whole lot. He's been currently down in the American Hockey League right now. So he's kind of like a spare part for them, I guess, if you will. And Michael Del Zotto's kind of been in the same boat with the Vancouver Canucks, although he has played more NHL games this season. He's played in 23 games, put up 4 points. But oftentimes has been a healthy scratch, and when he has played, his ice time has been down. So this was a deal that doesn't surprise me at all. We discussed in a trade rumor video back in the past probably 1 to 2 weeks, where I mentioned that the Vancouver Canucks were very interested in moving Del Zotto, where he wasn't playing a whole lot. I know he would welcome the trade as well for a chance to play more frequently, more often, more minutes. And there had been some interest out there, but I thought that this might be a deal that might wait and happen closer to the deadline, just because teams are trying to save as much cap space as they can and kind of see where their own rosters are at before they take on a player like this. But it's basically a swapping of the depth defensemen that we're not getting a ton of playing time. But Del Zotto certainly has played more this year than Schenn has. So I guess we'll see if this works for either team. Both of them are, they don't have long-term contracts or anything like that. So it's a fairly low-risk deal to kind of swap players, see if they can get anything going on their own end. But I would fully suspect that there's a good possibility that neither player will be kicking around too much longer in the NHL and with their new teams that have acquired them, but they will hopefully get a chance to play a little bit more in each of their situations. Now, Luke Schenn very well might end up in the American Hockey League. I'm not quite sure where he's going to stand once what the Canucks' plans are with him, but he was currently playing in the minors at the time of the deal, so he could flip over and go to Utica, and we'll see what that happens here. Because, it's been rumored that the Vancouver Canucks are going to want to bring in Quinn Hughes once his season in Michigan is over. He's indicated that once his season finishes there that he would be interested in signing. So there's a pretty good possibility, depending on when exactly his season is over, that he can get into some games this year. So they're not going to want to create too many clogs here in the roster. They're going to want to give him a chance to play. So we'll see what happens, but I think Schenn, very well could be a piece. Likely go down, help their American Hockey League affiliate, maybe come up and play a few games if needed. But certainly don't see him being a long-term fit in Vancouver. Just kind of a swapping of depth defensemen there. So the Ducks have been busy. Wouldn't be a complete shocker to see them continue to be busy. Of course, that's 4 trades here in a couple days. We've got a little bit of a facelift for the team, but none of this is really anything significant. So I don't really see it making a huge impact. If anything, it very well could prolong their losing streak, because they're not really gaining a whole lot back. Like with Aberg going down, being traded, and then you get Silverberg, who's just gone on IR. That's 2 of their top 3 goal scorers right there, suddenly out of the lineup. So that's not going to bode well for sure. Ryan Kessler's also on injured reserve as well. So between Silverberg, Kessler, and Cogliano, who were playing together a fair bit as a line, that line has suddenly disappeared. Corey Perry's been out all year. They've had injury problems with Raquel and Kasha, who are currently in the lineup now. So the Anaheim Ducks have certainly been bit hard by the injury bug. Some of it has to do with their aging veterans, like I've expressed concerns about before. Obviously, they're in a bit of a free fall right now, so it's hard to say what direction they're going. They certainly have an opportunity to salvage the season and make the playoffs. At the same time, they might go in another direction and decide that maybe now is the time to kind of start the process of retooling. But we'll see if the Ducks make anything more significant of trades as we approach the NHL trade deadline. But as I've stated before, a lot of their aging veterans with the big long-term deals that are really hampering their ability to make a lot of changes, like Perry and Kessler and Getzlaf, etc., they're all tied to strong no-move clauses, and it's going to be very difficult to move any of those guys. Kessler is extremely beaten up with his body. I don't see him lasting too much longer in the NHL. Perry's on a long-term injury reserve. Do they want to trade Getzlaf? I don't know. Either way, this team needs to be shaken up further. They need some more significant trades, I think, to really turn the corner here and get progressing towards a better result and getting their younger players in to be bigger roles on the team. So let me know your thoughts on these 3 trades by the Anaheim Ducks down in the comments. Do you see these deals making the Ducks better here in the short term? Or could it actually cause them to maybe be a little bit worse and take an even further step back here on their 18-19 season? If you're new to the channel here, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up before you go. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.